Have you ever been overwhelmed, just can't get everything done, just feel like you haven't achieved anything because there's so much on your to-do list? Hey, it's Conn Jackson and help is on the way. Welcome back to Get Connected. I'm so glad you're with us today. And stress indeed, according to the Medical Association, they believe that 70% of physical ailments might be the result of stress. How do we maintain it? Well, we have an expert with us today. Her name is Cooper Lawrence, and it's great to welcome her live. Cooper, welcome.
Hi, Conn.
Well, it's great to have you with us on Get Connected.
Thank you for having me.
Well, if there's anyone to talk about stress, doctor, it would be you because A, you're a psychologist, author, TV personality. I've heard you on the radio. You write in numerous publications. How do you keep stress-free?
Well, you know, I'm the opposite. I'm the kind of person where it stresses me out to not do all that stuff. You know, people have different personalities, right? I'm the kind of person I need to keep on moving and keep on working. And then you get people who, you know, just sitting in traffic makes them feel stressed out or, you know.
Well, Dr. Cooper, we have so much to learn from you today, but first and foremost, let's start off with what is the meaning of stress? What is it?
Stress is any situation that you feel out of control, and as a result, it causes you, sometimes for people it's extremes. It could be problems with their health, it could just be nervousness, it could be anxiety, but the idea is that the situation is something you feel out of control. So, which is why one of the main tips psychologists always give when you're talking about stress is try to stay in control. You hear that all the time. But, something else you can do is just be aware of the different types of stressors that are in people's lives that they experience. You know, if you're online at a bank, if you're stuck in traffic, if you're on a phone or whatever, these are the kind of things that make people feel very, very stressed out because they feel out of control. You can't control the other person on the phone. You can't control the person at the counter. But there are certain things you can control. It's interesting. Harris Interactive just did a poll where they found that one of the areas of stress people have the most is their computers. 66% of us say that it's waiting for our computers, waiting for technology to catch up with us makes us feel very stressed out. A whopping 23% said that we are extremely stressed out waiting for our technology. If you want to see how stressed out you are, you can go to facebook.com/Intel and take a stress test and see how am I doing. You can also win a laptop with the new technology that I was talking about.
So, doctor, what might we call this syndrome?
Yeah, not a doctor, and this is not a medical term, but Intel calls it the hourglass syndrome, which is kind of a cute term when you think about it because we've all experienced it, yet we've never given it a name. And it's that moment where you're sitting in front of your computer and you're trying to download a file or pictures, and you see that little hourglass, and it's flipping around and it's freezing, and you're feeling just so frustrated because there's not a lot you can do, you think, which is why Intel has introduced these new products, the Intel Core processor. And this processor is a smart processor, which means it knows if you need it to work much harder for you. You've, a big file you're trying to download, versus you're just sending an email so you don't need it to work as hard. And it knows that, so it conserves energy. It's, it's green in that way.
Well, I guess we should call it the stress-free processor. The good news is, in all my computers, I run Intel, so in that department, I'm stress-free. But let's talk about our to-do list, traffic, family obligations, all the things that are weighing down with us. What are some techniques to best handle stress?
My main recommendation is to be aware the only thing you can change is you. You can't do anything about that guy in traffic who's texting and not going forward or cutting you off. You can't change him, and there's always going to be that guy. You can only change you. Also, if you take a more global approach, if you really put it in perspective, in the moment you're like, oh my gosh, I have to get to, X, Y, and Z. But in the scheme of things, so what if you're late? So what if you go the next day? It's not going to change your life any. Those kind of things that you can have some control over. It's also really important to have a network. Whether it's people you could say, you know what, you handle this, or just somebody you can call and say, I'm feeling stressed out, just please relate to me for 5 seconds so I feel a little better about things.
Well, Cooper, I missaid this earlier. It wasn't the Medical Association that said that, so let me correct it. But according to the Psychological Association, 70% of our physical ailments might be attributed to stress. What do you have to say about that?
Right. I mean, that's the latest research, and it's a fascinating study because it tells you that you have control over any health issues you have. You know, there's so many different new terms like irritable bowel syndrome and things like that are all stress related. So if you can control the stress in your life, if you can alleviate stress and have less of it, your health will be better. And I know the medical community is on this already. You know, finding links between stress and health issues. So it's the same thing psychologically.
We're going into a meeting. Just before we walk in the door, what's a technique that we can alleviate some of our stress so we can be at our best?
The breathing technique that most psychologists recommend it's called mindful breathing. It's like mindful eating is the new diet, right? So it's about actually listening to your breath. It calms you immediately, but also remembering that if you plan how the meeting is going to go, if you're prepared, you're less stressed.
The awesome Dr. Cooper, thank you so much for joining us today and also for the insight into the new Intel processors.
Thanks, Conn.
If you want to learn more about being stress-free, you can log on to our website at conntv.com and you'll learn all kinds of techniques that you can practice today. Hey, when we come back, speaking of happy, hey, it's time to celebrate a big birthday. We'll celebrate it live and you'll be surprised to find out how old she is. I know we're not supposed to reveal age, but we will next.